So y'all are in for a treat today. We'll pick a topic on the fly, something that we think will maybe help you guys get some value, and then we're going to answer some questions you all submitted on the Q&A form. Those are always great.
Yeah, he thought he could outrun me.
I did not think I could outrun you.
He lost. I've beaten him in running, shooting guns, and Mario Kart.
You sure did, babe. The shit people say where it's like, I would play with you, but I got a bad everything. It's because of the decisions you're making now in your 30s and 40s. It starts now. Does walking in place count as steps? The unsaid causes so much
Friction.
Oh my God. Welcome to the podcast, y'all. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
We're so spooky.
We're so scary.
Yeah, you got your emotional support pillow.
I always have my emotional support pillow.
Excellent.
I just like holding something.
I know. I think it's fine. You do what you need to do to feel good. I will say, y'all better be ready because I don't know what the fuck is wrong with her today.
That's so not nice.
Well, so
oh my God, I think it's because I'm overtired.
Yeah. So she's
it's
a
like
little
2
bit.
days of no sleep. Somebody snores and it keeps
it's
me
like
up
it's like the Halloween bewitching hour has taken place.
at night.
Yeah, so she's real spooky. So y'all are in for a treat today.
Just depends on what comes up. I don't know.
We're gonna give a little bit of a little update, a little life update, and then we're gonna. Do we have a topic for today?
We can pick one on the fly.
We'll pick a topic on the fly, something that we think will maybe help you guys get some value, and then we're gonna answer some questions you all submitted on the Q&A form. Those are always great.
We won't post it on Instagram. Oh no, that was the React videos.
Yeah, we will do React videos, but we can't do crazy ones anymore.
No, we won't.
We talked about that on the other show, on the other podcast episode. But let's dive right in here.
It's the holidays.
Yeah, it is. We don't get trick or treaters out here, just to let you know. We live in the middle of nowhere.
So you just bought a bunch of candy
for
to
us.
eat.
Yeah.
Good dieting's going real nice.
Yeah. We don't get any trick. Yeah, that's all for us. I got a whole bucket of candy for us.
I walk out of the office earlier, and he's like, "I ordered some candy just in case." I was like, "Okay, as long as you got some chocolate."
We might get a couple, like the neighbors might trick or treat. But anyway, it's Halloween, y'all. Halloween. What was Halloween like for you growing up?
We wore costumes and we went trick or treating.
Awesome. Every trick or treater's experience ever. Here's what we did. So my
literally normal.
Yeah,
my experience was normal.
Riveting. Thank you.
So
So my best friend when I was growing up, his name was Cody, and here's what we would do. We had a very elderly neighbor.
Oh, did you tell them about the?
Let me tell this story first, and before you do what you do. So we dressed up as Mortal Kombat characters or just random costumes, and we would go to this elderly lady's house, and we would trick or treat. She'd give us candy. She'd close the door. We would switch costumes, trick or treat her again. Close the door, switch costumes. We would trick or treat the same lady like 5 times, and we would just trade. Like he'd put on my hat, and I'd put on his shirt, and then vice versa, his mask or whatever, and we'd fool her like 5 times in a row.
Do you think she was actually fooled, or she just played along?
In hindsight, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But we were like, let's fool this old lady and just like show up, and she'll never know. We'll get all the candy because she had really good candy.
She probably knew and was just a kind lady.
Maybe. She's in a better place now. South Florida. So let's we've just been working a lot, huh?
It doesn't stop.
No.
Well, we've talked about this, like the dynamic of our relationship. It's one of those things where like you're kind of the brakes and I'm kind of the gas, and I've brought you to the dark side.
I think I'm more of the clutch, and here's why. I know when to shift gears a little bit and just maybe even coast sometimes. Because when you're driving a stick shift, you put in the clutch when you coast. So I think I just know when to coast a little bit, and you're just all your pedal to the
all gas, no brakes.
Yeah, yeah, you would work 24/7 if it were up to you. If you were running this joint, there'd be no work life balance. We would just be, yeah, yeah. This is what happens, by the way, when she works a lot. She just gets delusional, delulu, as you would say.
Delulu.
Yeah. So we've been working a lot. It's all on social media stuff, on
The business.
the business, trying
The
to
business.
do it the right way, build it really well, and it's very involved, and
I am really grateful for our teams. I will
Mm.
say, like, my assistant and your assistant have collaborated and communicated in a phenomenal way, and I am very, very grateful for that. Coaches stepping up on both sides to collaborate together, to connect together, to make sure that we're carrying over respective skill sets and really aligning with what we want to build. And I've just been very, it makes me really grateful. It makes me very proud of our respective teams and our leadership, and just to see them all come together on a mission that they're all very excited about. Like, that is really, really cool to see, because you don't know.
Mm-mm.
But seeing that come to fruition, and even, like, I can only speak on, I haven't met all of your clients yet, but on our side, like, everybody's really excited about the next step. So I just am very, very grateful for that.
Get excited, dummies. That's what I'll tell. No, I'm just kidding. No, they'll be stoked. I promise you.
Joking me. Thanks.
So, sorry.
It's okay.
My bad. Other than that, we had some. What I want to talk about Tennessee. So Kate met my family,
Mhm.
which was badass. What?
I want to tell them about. I don't know if I can tell them. Never mind.
Okay. Anyway, so Kate met my family, and it was awesome. And I have a new appreciation for the seasons. We don't get them down here. We get one season. We get hot and a little less hot.
God, humid.
Yeah, really. She doesn't like the humidity.
No.
You get used to it.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do. And the best thing about it is you don't have to moisturize. It's the best. So anyway,
That's like saying you get used to just living in a sauna. No, you don't. It's so uncomfortable unless you get some AC. It's
you get used to it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people here. So
they're old people.
Lots of young folks. People think that about Florida, but
I would love to pull up the demographics.
there's old people everywhere.
Yeah, but not that many.
What will this prove?
That I'm.
I didn't say there wasn't old people. You realize that, right?
Look at.
I didn't say there wasn't old people. I just
Okay.
said that it's not just old people. Which
I
the statistics will show.
agree. I agree with you. Can't just be old people.
All right.
Continue. Tennessee.
Why do you need this data?
I'm literally just curious.
What you got?
A quarter of your population.
25%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 75% not old. Got it. Anyway, so
75 older.
huh?
Continue.
75 or older is
Mhm.
considered elderly. Okay. So yeah, seasons, right? So Tennessee was
Beautiful.
yeah, I took for granted how awesome the leaves are. Red, orange, you name it, yellow, you name it. Thanks. I forgot the last one. So yeah, it was we walked around a lot. We had an appreciation, but one of the biggest takeaways we got, I think, was we need to take a break from fucking work sometimes.
Well, I think when we went to Hawaii, I don't know if you wrote it in an email or said it on a podcast, but you're talking about how, like, us having the space to do that is really good for us. And we had that information in retrospect of going to Hawaii. I feel like this was just a really good reminder. And we talked about this privately afterwards, as far as, like, because we're doing so much stuff and we're both really excited about doing all the things that we need to do, there's still so much to get done. And so we can kind of lose the day in focusing on all the tasks that are ahead of us and in front of us. Whereas when we get into a container where it's like meeting your family was phenomenal, I was very grateful that I was able to do that and kind of tune out for a bit. And not just like, end of day where we're tired and we're like sloths on the couch, but like being present in something outside of that was actually very, very lovely. And I think it will be important for us, and I don't know, people listening to this, like, to have containers of time where you aren't focused on achieving, I think for me is a really important reminder.
Yeah, you said it well. We both have that switch where we're like, here's a task list. I'm just gonna fucking crush this thing, and there's more to do, and there's more to do. We also are very ambitious people, and I never want to, take that away from us either. But more importantly is, as we've always said, relationship. More importantly is because it's like when I look back when I'm 80, I'm not going to wish I worked a hell of a lot more. I'm going to want more laughs. I'm going to want more goofiness. I'm going to want more all the things that we do when we're connected. So that connection is so important. I'm really glad that we prioritize that.
I think it's interesting. Like, my thought was, if I was listening to this, like, and I didn't know you and I, or like I was curious, my brain would go like, what do you mean by connection? I don't know that, because like I've dated people, obviously, like not anyways for a long period of time, but either way, like connection feels like it varies. And so how would you describe that?
That's a great question, because I didn't know what it meant really until, I always wanted it. And I think a lot of men want it and don't know how to go about it, or don't know what it is they need, or don't know how to cultivate it. So to your credit and to our credit, I really didn't, that wasn't defined for me until our relationship. But I will say it's presence first and foremost for me. I mean, when we're here, no shit, not in my head, not stressing about the future, not talking about work, because then we get in work mode. It's, I'm here, I'm with you, and you're here with me. And we're breathing the same air. I feel I'm in my body. And we've done that a lot with conversation. When we talk about life, we have existential conversations here and there when I have the energy for it. When we have got to hit me early in the day. But we've had a lot of presence. And sometimes it's nothing at all. Sometimes I feel very present with you just sitting. But it's time together, intentional time together, where there's no phone, there's no, up in the clouds. And we both value it, and we both seek it out with, asking one another, like, what's on your mind? What are you thinking about? Hey, where's your head at right now? We both are very vigilant in that way. And I can tell when you're in yours, and you can tell when I'm in mine. And it's like, we both seek that connection out, because for me, I don't want to speak for you. For me, it's like, hey, I want to connect with you. And I feel like you're thinking about something. So it's either like, hey, let me in on what you're thinking, so I can, we can talk about it. Or just, I want you right now. I want your affection. I want your presence. I want your attention. I think a lot of people are afraid to ask for those things too. Mm-hmm. We've gotten real literal about it now. I desire your affection. I'll say it from across the house.
Literally, that literally happens. That's a real thing.
I desire your attention and your affection. I think a lot of people are afraid to say that because it makes you sound needy. Someone labeled you needy in your past, and now you don't want to be needy for asking. They should just know. They should just know to give me affection. It's like, well, sometimes you can just ask and then you get it.
I think there are so many paths in my brain just went down simultaneously. I'm not sure which one I want to choose, but I think what's
well, it's because we're going into relationship stuff. That's your wheelhouse.
So I think it's really interesting, just to point to something that we talked about earlier today. I think that sometimes when we have a need that we feel unworthy of experiencing, or that we're afraid of being rejected so much so that we don't ask for it to be met, we create this space that we actually don't want, which pushes the need further away from you. Like, to give that example, texture, there are times where, like, if I'm upset and I want a hug, or if I'm really, really stressed out and I just want somebody to tell me something, everything's going to be okay, I will instead isolate. That's not what I want, but you can like create the space that you don't want to experience out of negative emotion. And so like being able to acknowledge that and then validate that for yourself, because you cannot have an emotional state validated by somebody else if you're unwilling to validate it yourself. And so for me to say, like, I'm really, really stressed out right now with all the things going on, if I can't say that to you, you can't support me in that. And I think it's one of those things where you have to do the scary thing over and over again, especially with the right person. It makes it a lot easier to say to you, I feel really needy, but I really want your attention right now. And I can just say that. And I know that you're not going to like throw it in my face or weaponize it or make me feel bad about wanting your affection. And I think that's taken time to build that trust, especially if you have a history where your needs were neglected or you were judged or labeled in a certain way. But I think it's important, if you want that connection, to know that sometimes the connection that you crave has to be initiated by you, because somebody else is going to read you and assume that you're upset. You don't want them to fuck with you. You want to be left alone. Like, in all those things, I can see myself seeing in you too. And I don't always know that you want something from me. In fact, my interpretation oftentimes is, don't go near that man right now. So, yeah.
And if we think about how people sometimes go about getting those needs met in indirect ways, and how like the unsaid causes so much friction. Oh my God. So.
Oh, Stacy showed up. What up, girl?
She's in there. She's dormant, but she's in there. Passive aggressive, right? It's like,
oh, I hate that.
Yeah, you like it's people that like want their needs met, want affection, want something, and they're not getting it. So instead, they punish you for the need that they didn't voice. Like we've all probably done that in some way or another, or experienced it. So that's again, like takes the right person, takes a very communicative relationship and a safe relationship, but voice your fucking needs, man. If you want something met, fucking ask for it. So we're doing what are some of the ways that we're cultivating that connection is one, just being intentional with stepping away from work. And for us, so far, that looks like going on walks and then sometimes taking like an hour to go shoot basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So we both played college basketball, which is awesome. So we can both go and hoop. And that sometimes is all we need. There have been days, we're not perfect. There have been days where we've either had some difficult conversations or we've, been in intention.
You can be honest.
I am. We've had some conflict here and there. And so on those days when it's like you've had a conflict and it's not resolved yet and you don't know what to say, sometimes just like get in the car, let's go shoot basketball.
Yeah.
And then 30 minutes later after we've been playing one-on-one, we feel better. We've talked through some shit.
Yeah, and I think like one really good example of this, because like I never want to paint a picture, especially because like my focal point, especially in the domain of psychology, is men and relationships. Like I never want to pretend I have it all figured out, but there are times where we do have conflict. I will say it's not if you fight, but how you fight. Every couple will fight. I would think that elevated emotions that are controlled are better than indifference. And I think understanding that, it's accepting the fact that you will not get along perfectly even with your person. It's just not feasible. They don't have your mind. You don't have theirs. And so it's understanding how to ride the fine line of like, how do I express how I feel without offending this person or upsetting them? Because once you kind of evoke negative emotion in another person, it just amplifies the temperature in the room and it doesn't go anywhere. So especially if you don't have conflict resolution skills in place. I digress, but one of the mornings we got up and it was like there was some lingering discomfort and you were like, do you want to go on a walk? And I was like, yeah. And then we went for a walk. We ended up running the whole time because we didn't talk. We didn't say a word.
Yeah, my dumb ass initiated a run.
Yeah, he thought he could outrun me.
I did not think I could outrun you.
He lost.
I at no point thought I could outrun you. I don't run. You do.
Sometimes.
You run half marathons. So like that was not the point. The point was
look at this getting competitive.
No, it's not
Either
competitive.
way, my point was
you
like
made it
is
competitive. You said that you won.
Yes, I did. I've beaten him in running, shooting guns, and Mario Kart.
You sure did, babe.
Thank you.
You sure did.
Yeah.
You beat me in all those things.
I did once. That doesn't mean you haven't beat me a dozen other times. Well, in Mario Kart. Anyway.
Yeah, we won't talk about one-on-one. But anyway, so
Rusty Dusty.
both of us.
The rusty spoon.
It's not pretty. We walked off that court like, damn.
Oh, my knees were hurting.
Damn, dude. I feel like I just got hit by a truck.
Oh,
But
anyways.
What I was going to say is before you went into, anyway.
She stunk on it.
You're a great runner, and I knew that. Like, you're very athletic. I was actually going to talk about how bad it was. If you were going to let me finish, I was going to say it was so bad. And I was telling Steve this the other day, but it was, yes. I was like, here's how bad it was. Not only like, I thought I was doing okay. Like, I was like, all right, well, we're running the same pace here. And then she just decided to start trying. And then on the way back, it was so bad that I was going so slow that she had to run sprint intervals the rest of the run. So basically, she would let me get like 100 yards ahead, sprint and catch me, and then let me get ahead again, and then sprint to catch me again. She used my slow pace as a finish line for her sprints over and over. And then was running backwards at one point. So, and I'm just trying to survive. Like, I was trying to make it back to the house. I was like, damn, I didn't realize how long this run was. I should probably pace myself. So that was what happened with the run. But anyway, the whole point of bringing that up was we went on a run and then we ran some shit out. Sometimes it's like the thing that you need isn't words. Sometimes there's like when there's nothing to be said, you go and you exert yourself. You get out of the environment that is causing the tension or where the tension has been happening. And for us, it's harder because we work from home, and so it's like we do everything here. So we had to get the fuck out of the house. Like that's the main point. Go for a run. Go play basketball. Go on a date. We have date night scheduled every week. It's just being really intentional with the stuff that maintains the relationship. Because if you don't have the relationship, everything else crumbles.
Well, and I will say too, one thing that I really am grateful for is like that morning is a beautiful example of like you asking me to go with you when you could have gone by yourself. Like there was a gesture, even though we didn't know what to say and we didn't know what we were going to talk about, and I didn't know who was going to bring what up when. So it's like nothing needed to be said, I don't think, for it to be like, I'm by you, I got you, we're still good. And so like I don't think everything always needs to be spoken. I think that there are other things you can do behaviorally that like provide the safety and support that your partner may need to feel, especially in times of friction.
Yes, because here's what's usually happening is we're at a war with either a prior relationship that caused the wound that's surfacing, or we're at war with self. Like I can speak for myself. It's never actually you. So like I'm like in this space of I love the shit out of you. I adore you. I'm frustrated because we can't figure this thing out. So all I know to do is, hey, let's go on a run. And maybe we'll figure it out while we're out there, but I know it won't hurt. Like that's all we need. I think with us, with people who are a little more vigilant with their partner, as far as like sensing things that are amiss, or like maybe assuming that we did something wrong, or at least just again, speaking for myself, if something's off and I'm like, well, what did I do? I must have done something, must have said something wrong. When 99% of the time it's not the case, but I'll still go there. With people like us, it's good to get out of, because we'll create problems that aren't there. We'll make problems that aren't even there worse. And sometimes, and then we afterwards, we're like, we don't even actually have a problem. We're just we're just cooped up in this house. We need to go somewhere.
Well, it's one of those things too, where like there's an external stimulus that evokes a negative emotion. This is why, like when you're a teenager, you yell at your mom or your father. It's like you had a bad day at school. They had nothing to do with it, but the people that you are closest to, that love you the most, you tend to treat the worst. And so it's like always keeping that in the back of my mind when I'm having an experience. Like sometimes I'll just get quiet and I'm just like, I have things that I need to manage because it literally has nothing to do with you. I'm just having a bad day because of something over here. But I think sometimes because we have so many changes happening all at once, which I'm really proud of the way that we've navigated it. We are willing to have uncomfortable conversations and address the problem in the room and like do our best with our own perspective, perceptions and frame of reference, experiences, and then projections involved in the same dance. Really being able to acknowledge like, okay, which part of this problem are we wanting to solve and how do we want to go about doing that? And where do we want to be on the other side of it? And I think one thing I always work with people around is like, before you get into a difficult conversation, you need to ask yourself where you want to be with this person on the other side of that conversation. Because if you go in without that clarity, you can go tit for tat trying to be right, and all you're doing is creating distance between you and that person. If your goal is for them to fuck off, then like that's what you're going to get. But I think if you go into it with like, I want to come together stronger, in retrospect of this conversation that's difficult for us to have, I'm going to be really impeccable with my word. I'm going to say what I mean. I'm going to practice patience. I will be humble because I don't know what I don't know and I could absolutely be wrong. And then being willing to listen without internalizing stuff. That is a hard skill to practice because people will say things, especially people that you love, especially when you're involved in things. You can think that they're saying something bad about you when oftentimes, like you said, sometimes it has to do with a past experience that's bringing up something in them that is being brought into the context of where you are. And so being able to sift through that is a hard skill I've had to learn, but it does allow me to stay grounded when things are a little shaky.
Yeah. Yeah. All of that. 100. You just spit some flames, babe.
Fire emojis.
Just spit some lava. Damn, just salivating lava on their asses.
So yeah, I met his family.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. Yo, we got to tell the story. So you guys would have to know my dad for this to be hilarious, as hilarious as it is to us. But just the shit that your parents tell you that is just so just normal everyday shit that's so funny. So my parents have this. I hope they don't mind me telling this. I don't think they will. But they have a bed that's like elevated, right? Like it's elevated up. It's inclined. Yeah, inclined a little bit. And it's for, like lymphatic drainage, inflammation, snoring, right? And so my dad was talking about how you have to, it's the way he says it too. And he's like, hell, yeah, I sleep good in it, but I fall down to the bottom every morning. I have 4 or 5 times through the night. I fall down to the bottom. Then I got to get up and walk back up top again and get in bed. He said, and hell, on the way down, gives me a wedgie.
Oh my gosh. And like his dad, I think his dad is very sweet, but he has a very dry sense of humor. So you know how people tell jokes, like even when Mav does it, it's like when the punchline is about to come. His dad doesn't have that. So
Poker face.
Just totally same tone, same facial expression. So you think he's being dead serious when he's telling a joke. And so like I had to wait for the punchline to hit and then digest it because it was separate from his affect in sharing that moment. So it was actually really, really funny for me, delayed 3 seconds, but it was hilarious nevertheless.
Yes, he's the king of poker faces. He can keep a straight face. And it's so funny because he exaggerates so much when he tells stories, and like I want him to, because I eat that shit up. I think it's the funny. I've always thought that's the funniest thing since I was a child, when he would just tell these stories. I knew he was exaggerating, but the way he keeps a straight face, especially when you're watching him tell someone else, and he knows that and you know that he's exaggerating, but the person he's telling doesn't know. Oh, you just watch it unfold because they can't read his poker face. It's the funniest thing ever. With random people, like oh man, that's one of my favorite parts about him. He's so funny. But yeah, so that was great. Just a wonderful time. We had a wonderful, wonderful time. Great conversations. Great. Just like you said, we'd work, early in the day, then we'd take the rest of the day off and be present and go walk and talk to my parents. It's really cool. It was everything I hoped it would be and more. So that was wonderful. So we did that. We've shoot, my G, what else are we doing? We just working every day, just work. So is that our life? Is that it? That the update? We're working. My car doesn't charge now. That happened this morning. Charger didn't work. Gotta figure that out. Stuff breaks all the time. I gotta fix it or figure it out.
Yeah, but it was a blessing that we had your dad's car.
Yeah, thanks,
Dad. We had to bring Bean to school.
Thanks, Dad. Wasn't for you, I don't know. We Ubered Ben to school, I guess.
Thanks, Skip.
Appreciate you, Dad. Appreciate you. What do we want to talk about? I mean, we've done some good stuff on relationships already. What can we do for about 15, 20 minutes?
What do you want to talk about?
Well, okay.
Because I can riff on anything. It just depends on how abstract you would like me to go.
Right. I need you at about a 6.5 on the abstract today. I know.
It's a difficult thing.
I know. So, one thing is, let's talk about this. And we could go for days on this, but I think that you speak about this very, very well. And that is what I notice I've done a lot of calls with women prior to joining the program. And so you've talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. You've been coaching for a long time, just like I have. But a commonality is I put out hours and hours of free information. You know that about me. Everybody knows that about me. I put out hours. I got a 2-hour-long YouTube video. It tells you exactly what to do to change your body forever. Lifestyle, hormones, fucking values, everything is there. Despite that, 5% of people can successfully get body results on their own and maintain them. So the gap between intention and action, but the main thing, which is I know what to do, I just don't do it. Why is that?
Well, this is where it's difficult because temperament and personality dimensions do play a role. I think that there's lack of actual good information. So the expectation that they have around what needs to be achieved and how much of it they need to do puts pressure on them to where if they fall short of that ideal, they internalize that as failure. And so they stop doing it. So the behavioral pattern typically goes something like this. You have a moment where you hit rock bottom. Maybe you saw a picture of yourself that you freaking hated. Your clothes don't fit anymore. You and your husband aren't intimate anymore. He's not attracted to you, or you're just so insecure you don't want to be touched.
You're not in any pictures with the kids.
Yeah, anything. There's just something that activates you, an activating event, right? And so you're like, all right, I can't stay here anymore. I need to do something about this. And so you have now oriented towards a goal and you start putting in effort. But that effort comes with an expectation. And so when the outcome does not match the expectation, you experience negative emotion or disappointment. When you experience that disappointment, you justify why it's never going to work for you, why you're never going to get there, that you're a failure. And then you start to rationalize or tell yourself this story of like, it's not that bad. I'm not in a hospital bed. I can postpone this. I can do it another time. It's not the right time for me. I should love myself just the way that I am. There's no point in doing it at all. I'm never, whatever your story is to justify staying stuck where you are until you hit that next rock bottom moment.
All right. So before we go into that, because what I want to do is I want to take what you just said and give an example, just so like what the expectation is, they hit rock bottom, right? Mm-hmm. And then what they try doesn't yield the outcome they want. So an example of this would be, okay, I'm gonna get in shape now. I had this terrible moment where I XYZ saw photos, and by the way, I'm not trying to interrupt you because I want you to keep going, but I want to give context where it's like so what you try might be keto, or what you try might be Whole30, Optavia, Noom. But then, so you lose weight really quick, but then it doesn't pan out. You don't maintain it. None of those things you weren't able to repeat those things. So then the outcome is you regain all your weight back, not what you expected. So then turn the page. Here they are.
Okay. So a few things just around that conceptually. I would think most of the time, yes, that's one example. Another example is you are going on a diet and you expect to lose 20 pounds in 12 weeks. So you start doing the things, you're moving a little bit, you don't really understand training intensity, so you're not training that hard, but you're doing what you can, perceived level of effort that is required. You track your food, but your actions aren't necessarily 100%, and nevertheless, you lose 5 pounds in 12 weeks. And so you're disappointed with that, and you're like, why the fuck am I even trying this? It's not working. So you quit, right, until you start that over. And the problem with that is that you are putting a ton of pressure on yourself because you've put a timeline in place. If you want long-term outcomes, and this is a first principle thought. So this applies in every single domain of your life. If you want a long-term result that you can sustain, you have to approach that in a manner that focuses on skills and that focuses on habits and behaviors. And so where you are now is a side effect of how you've lived your life over a chronic period of time. That's your weight, that's your body composition, that's your health status. All of those things did not just show up one day because you turned 40. They showed up because you've lived your life a certain way over a period of time where your outcomes are reflective of how you've lived your life. So if you want to change the outcomes long term, you have to start changing how you live your life, which is a very difficult thing to do because it's not just following a checklist of things that you need to fixate on. Will that get you moving towards improving certain things, learning about nutrition, prioritizing protein, getting in movement, trying to pick up some weights? Absolutely great things for you. But just doing those things haphazardly because now you have a deadline, you're already subconsciously telling yourself, I'm going to do this for 12 weeks. I'm going to get the dream body and then I can go back to living my lifestyle because that's where I'm comfortable. If you don't focus on doing something because you say values, however you want to perceive that, but you have to be willing to focus on endurance over speed. And people get fixated on speed because people on the internet will say, I lost this amount of weight in this short period of time by doing this stupid fucking thing. What they don't tell you is what happens in the aftermath, like gaining the weight back, struggling with food, having body image issues, having metabolic disorders, lots of different side effects of just stupid fucking shit that people will do to feel good. Because the other thing that's true is most people will pursue a goal because they want to experience the assumed emotional state that they will get from achieving it. So I can't be confident until I lose 20 pounds. I can't put on a suit. I can't get in my wedding dress. I can't go on a date. I can't blah, 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 blah until I achieve this thing. And the negative consequence of that is that now you've just prolonged the time horizon in which you're allowing yourself to experience something that you can feel right now.
All right. So recap, we've got the misinformation, hard to find good information. So what people are typically attempt to achieve the outcome isn't aligned with what will achieve that ultimate outcome that they want. So, so the thing they try isn't what's actually going to get them there.
There's no such thing as a shortcut.
Agreed. So the second thing that I hear is the time expectation. The time it will take me to get to the outcome is often super distorted. And you made a great point. It's like, if you lived a certain way that's incongruent with health and incongruent with the goal that you have, let's just say it's fat loss, for 20 years, the proportion of time you've lived in that type of lifestyle is it's way out of proportion to the time you've likely lived congruent with that outcome of fat loss. It's just not, just from a time proportion perspective, the two are vastly different. It will take you a lot more time. It's not going to be reversed in a few weeks. It just doesn't work, or even a few months. It doesn't work like that. And then the third thing that I hear, so we got what the method isn't congruent. The time expectation is unrealistic. And then what was the third one? How they expect to feel at the destination, and then they get to the end of the 12 weeks of the crash diet, and it's not it. So then they have this disappointment associated, and it comes with feelings of failure and lack of self-belief, self-trust, perhaps.
I think the intention behind that was explaining the disappointment that people experience, or the self-inflicted suffering that people will perpetually experience because they assume incorrectly that with outcome comes emotional experience that I want more of. Like, I've said this to you before, everything that we do oftentimes aligns with a core need of being loved, validated, accepted, appreciated, acknowledged. And so every single goal, whether it's financial, status, attraction, career success, athletic achievements, like all of those pursuits, what do we get? Validation. Why? Because we want to be enough. Enough for who? For somebody to love us. And so, like, you can have those things now without having to achieve all those things. That's hard to believe, but the reason that I bring this up is why you're doing what you're doing matters. If you are doing it for something outside of yourself, you will never sustain it long term. It doesn't matter if you tell yourself you will. I'm telling you, you will not. And so you have to pick a path that is a level of difficulty that you can tolerate. You may not always enjoy it, but you can tolerate. And one of the reasons I say it has to be for you is because if the reason why you're doing it is greater than the resistance that you will feel inevitably doing something that's hard, you will always find a way to stay consistent with it. If it is not, you will give yourself an excuse not to do it.
If the reason is greater than the resistance, you will find a way through that resistance. If it's not, you will find a way out of it.
Correct.
I just wanted to repeat that because that was profound.
Yeah. So the other thing I think is important to say, just off of what you said, is you alluded to people not living their lives in a way that's congruent with health and fitness. I also want to shine a light on most people are not doing that intentionally.
Oh, for sure.
Like, you don't know what you don't know, and the things that you think you know are wrong. So you think carbs are making you fat, and so you think to lose weight, you must cut carbs. That's just not true. It's just not a truth at all. You might assume that because you see people talking about that, but that doesn't make it true. And what you neglect to look at is your own natural behavior and proclivities, because if you don't enjoy it, you will not continue to do it on some level. Like I said, it has to be, you will face resistance because these are habits and skills that you don't have. So whenever you learn anything from basic math to algebra to trigonometry to calculus to statistics to quantum physics, like all the way up the hierarchy, you have to learn new things. And every single time you learn something and try to apply it, it's hard because there's a difference between knowledge and understanding. And understanding only comes from application. You can read as many books as you want to, listen to as many podcasts as you want to, watch as many YouTube videos as you want to, and think that you know things, but you don't understand them until you apply them because you don't actually have the frame of reference with the appropriate data points to tell you how to move through life with that information. You only get that from doing. And
yes.
So, yeah.
Well, I was in that. So all of that, I fucks with it 100%. On top of that, people need space to be able to fuck it up. And what I mean by that is with a lot of the popular restrictive things, 75 hard, with keto, with any kind of super restrictive diet, if you fuck up, you're failing, right? You can't fall out of ketosis if you want to do true keto. You can't you can't eat certain foods if you're doing Whole30, or else you're failing. If you don't do the thing with 75 hard, the attrition rate's astronomical with that program. So people don't have room to make mistakes and fuck it up a little bit. Whereas, coaching is a great example here. When you feel safe to do the thing that you've labeled bad for so long, and then on the other side of that, it's not all out death. It gives you space to heal and to create new beliefs, because in order for beliefs to be disproven, you have to see proof to the contrary and evidence for that not to be true. And the only way you can do that is to be able to do, like you're saying, over and over and over again, consistently and long enough to be able to create those new beliefs. And a lot of that's from my own behavior modification. I needed a place to be safe, to be able to grow, and to be able to heal the things that were self-sabotaging.
Yes, and so I think that I agree. The truth is you will fuck it up. I mean, there's nobody that does everything perfectly the first time they try it. That's just an impossibility. You're not a magical being. You're a human.
That's what people don't see in our before afters. Is like, I think people assume it's like, oh, well, they must have done the plan perfectly. And it's like, no, that, you know how many times that this person, I can name 2 or 3 people on our before afters that had really bad days, bad weeks, or they binged, or they did some shit that they weren't proud of, and yet they have this result because they kept going, were consistent enough.
Yes, and I think the one point where I can be a little bit more firm is that if you know better and you choose not to do better, that is your own inflicted sense of suffering, right? The first time is a pass, absolutely. You don't know what you don't know, and then you'll fuck around and find out. Now you have information. The second time is kind of a lapse in judgment, or you're just in a place where there's high levels of, especially if you have low self-esteem, so maybe judgment of other people, new environment, different experiences, alternative pressures. So you might lapse a little bit. Third time, you're just fucking off. And I don't mean that literally 3 times. It might be 30 times. My point being that you should always be progressively improving with the information that you collect and receive through your lived experience. Because people will often say that like weight loss is a form of respect. Having a certain body is a form of self-respect. No, it's fucking not. How you do that is a form of self-respect. You can starve yourself, run yourself into the ground, do the bodybuilding thing. I've done it. I did not respect the shit out of myself at all.
Me neither.
I just forced my hand at suffering because I thought if I could be lean enough, pretty enough, aesthetic enough, validated enough, I would be enough. And so it wasn't because I respect myself enough to do what is best for me. It was because I need to become somebody who's worth respecting. That is not the way to go about that. And so if you can do it from a form of self-care, compassion, grace, and self-respect, like you will then evolve in a manner and a direction that you can be proud of no matter what the scale says the next fucking day or the next week or the next month or the next year. Because if you've lived your way in a certain pattern for decades, you're not going to reverse that in 6 months. I hate to break it to you. This is not a sales pitch. This is not anything other than honest truth. You've been working on yourself. I've been working on myself for over a decade. I hit rock bottom in 2015, 2016. That was when I was like, I need to figure out who the fuck I am. It's 2024. You have worked on yourself for 4 years-ish since your kind of rock bottom-ish moment?
Going on 5, yeah.
Yeah, so imagine somebody telling you it would take you 5 years for you to get to where you want to be. Many of you guys will be like, fuck that, I'm not doing it. Okay, great. Don't take care of yourself. And then you will inevitably have to pay for that shit later on down the road, whether it's not playing with your kids, not playing with your grandkids, getting sick early in life, not avoiding comorbidities, depression, anxiety, hormone issues, whatever it might be, whatever the fuck it might be, you will have to face that dragon eventually.
Yeah, the diabetes and the joint pain and the inflammation and the shit that's keeping you from the shit people say where it's like, I would play with you, but I got a bad everything. It's because of the decisions you're making now in your 30s and 40s. It starts now. That's what people don't realize. The other thing that I wanted to hit on that you said there that I think is...
I was going to show this too because I made it.
The cycle of staying stuck.
Yeah,
that's beautiful, baby. We'll maybe we can overlay that. Dev, can you overlay that? So
for the people,
for the folks washing. You got shit on your windshield. That's what you say.
That's not how I sounded.
What do you say?
You got shit on your windshield.
What I was gonna say is, so trending upward was something that I heard there, and you've heard me say that a lot too. It's not about doing it perfectly. This is where we see like the greener grass thing, where people are like 2 weeks, 3 weeks into a diet, they fall off. They're like, oh, well, I'll just try a different diet because this one wasn't, obviously I failed. So the thing is, if you're trending upward in your behavior, that is just like if you're trending downward in your weight, little rises and falls and little rises in your weight don't matter as long as you're trending downward. As long as you're trending upward in the behavior you're trying to modify, that is way more realistic than saying, I'm just going to cut out Snickers forever. No, that's really unrealistic if you fucking binged on Snickers for the last 10 years. I love Snickers, by the way.
You do? I've never seen you eat one Snickers bar.
That's
been
because
together for like 7 months.
That's because Milky Ways are infinitely superior.
Ew.
I love Milky Way bars.
Take 5.
Back to the podcast topic. So people who trend. So one thing I'll say is, and this is like a really simple example, but like if you have your calendar of the last month and you put circles around the days that you did not binge. Let's just use binging as an example. And you put X's on the days that you did binge. Over time, if you have more circles than you do X's, that's trending upward in the behavior. So people beat themselves up because they binged, like let's just say week to week. Someone binged 3 times last week and twice this week. Don't beat yourself up for binging twice. Be proud of yourself for not binging as much as you did the week prior.
Okay.
I'm not a clinical psych major here, so that's a very.
This is where you will hate me. I'm just really I'm particular with language. I think people overuse the term binge. I think people overuse a lot of terms, and it removes the meaning from it. So we can call it overeating. Emotional eating is probably more aligned to the tendency of behavior that we're looking to improve.
Fair. I'm not saying the clinical definition of binge. I'm saying we'll just say overeat. Perhaps that's a better way to.
So whenever you're trying to break a habit, the first skill that you have to build is awareness. You have to be aware of where are you environmentally. This could be physically and mentally. What was the activating event? So was it a really stressful work day where you just can't fathom your boss and you come home and your husband's a dick and it just feels like everything is piling up? How long have you moved in this way? How long has this been your coping mechanism? So periods of time will reinforce certain behaviors. It's just the thing that you naturally gravitate to automatically without putting thought into it. So if you can gather information and become aware, how do you feel? Can you label the emotion? Do you even know your emotions? Emotions are signals. So it's really important to understand what your emotions are, even if they're not based in reality or logical. That doesn't mean that they're not valid. So understanding those things can help you bridge that gap. Once you start to change behavior, the first thing that happens is the gravity of the event decreases. This does not mean that the event does not happen. It means if you're somebody who overeats, maybe let's just say, for example, that you ate a whole box of Oreos and that was like your thing. And then next time you have this proclivity to do it, you eat half and you stop yourself. That's not a loss, right? That's improvement of that behavior. Maybe the next time it's a quarter, then a third. Then, an eighth, and you just like boil it down. That's the first step. The second thing is frequency. So if it's every single day, and then maybe it's 3 days a week, and then maybe it's once a week, and then maybe it's once every other week, and then maybe it's once a month. It doesn't always decline at that slow of a pace, but for some people it does. But ultimately, it's looking at the micro improvements over time that you are making, and then acknowledging when you fucking win. Because even if it's not perfect, that doesn't mean that you lost. And I think people talking about jumping from the grass is greener over here to over there, people often feel as though when they fall short of the ideal, that they need to find another solution. Instead of asking themselves, what can I learn? Right? You can learn from failures. You can also learn from success. And if you're willing to take the feedback of like, okay, this did not go the way that I thought it would go. What did I miss? Because again, you can know everything that you think you need to know, but you will not understand it until you're in the trenches with it. And that's where you'll get the information by fucking it up to then ask yourself, well, what do I know now that I didn't know then? And how could I approach this differently next time? And so as long as you're actively learning throughout the process, if you stay consistent with that, if that's the goal, and you do it over a long enough time horizon, the outcome that you seek is inevitable. Most of you are impatient.
You didn't like the calendar idea?
It's not that I don't like it.
Because we kind of said the same thing there.
I don't not like it. I think it's all about how you're measuring it. Like, you could measure that based on tactical data. You can measure that based on how you feel you responded to something previously. Like, you could even do it based on how you feel at the end of the day. Are you satisfied with how you showed up today for yourself? Yes? Check mark. Now, if the goal is weight loss, then you do need to have some levels of restraint, technically. But if you only focus on those things, again, my bias is always going to be based on the longevity of what it is that we're doing. So just like step trackers, just like tracking your food, I think tools are great. I don't know that they're sustainable, and they don't necessarily reinforce automatic behaviors over time. They're almost like things that people can become codependent on. So just like you don't want your macros to tell you whether you did a good or bad job that day, I don't know that it's always helpful, maybe short term, to have a calendar where you remind yourself that yesterday was shit, so today has to be better.
Oh, I didn't realize that's what I said. Because what I heard you say was be a little bit easier on yourself and then praise yourself for doing right things, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of exactly what I said. And maybe I didn't say literally keep a calendar. I was saying view it as a calendar where if you are doing trending upward over time, if you're doing less of the behavior, then that's a good thing rather than punishing yourself for it recurring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else you want to say on like people knowing what to do but just not doing it?
I mean, there's lots of reasons why. One of them could be maybe you self-sabotage. Like, and that could be a whole podcast on itself. But like why people do that.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys want us to do that, let me know.
Yeah, because like I said, we could talk for days on just that alone. I know what to do, but I just don't do it. Because we work with really smart people.
Oh, brilliant
Like
people.
our clients are intelligent as shit. Like I talk, I'm blown away by people all the time on calls prior to the program and on group calls, things that people share. I'm just like, damn, y'all are killers. But sometimes that performative nature in their career stands in their way in the health arena, and that's where I have a lot of compassion, because we work with a lot of women who are crushing it in their career, very successful, happy marriages, successful marriages, but then this one arena, the body arena, the health arena, the self-love arena, the trust arena, miserable, struggling, suffering. So I've always found that very interesting, and I enjoy just helping people have grace for themselves, because shit, man, if it were easy, everybody'd be doing it. You know, it's I think we do. I think the norm is overcomplicating the hell out of it, and that's why I try to be really, really simple for people. But I do just see a lot of suffering there, and I have a lot of compassion. They're very driven people too. And it's like, what the fuck? I don't know. It's also like it's a process. I think that's a thing too. It's missing. And again, this is another thing we go for days on. But it's not just weight loss; it's weight maintenance, and it's also what do you do after you lose the weight? Especially if you had to eat poverty calories to get to a certain weight goal. What do you do after? How do you come out of that? Because one thing I was really proud of myself for on that webinar was describing the input-output column for people who, so like for instance, healthy people generally have high output, high input. They're eating a lot, they're moving a lot, right? They're fueling themselves, they're moving a lot, very active. Really unhealthy people have very, very high input, very, very low output. So very sedentary, but eating their asses off. That's the average American, by the way. The average American consumes 3,600 calories a day and moves less than, 2 hours a week? So less than 20 minutes a day on average. So you've got that disparity. And then stagnant people have very low input, low output. You have very, 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 very low output. You're not eating a lot of protein. You're not walking a lot. You're not strength training. Your BMR is decreasing with time because of loss of skeletal muscles, because of all of the above. And so in order to be in a caloric deficit, which means you're consuming less calories than you're expending, and the input's lower than the output. Well, if your output's at the fucking floor, the input's got to be lower than that to lose weight. So they find themselves in this conundrum where it's like, I want to lose weight, but I have to barely eat to do it. It's not even the amount I have to eat in order to lose weight is so unsustainable. I can't do it. So we have to expand that output column. It's like, it's not just about the caloric restriction. It's also about the energy expenditure. So that's something that I think a situation a lot of people find themselves in. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to come out of that. And all they've known is dieting. All they've known is calorie slashing. We'll just eat less. Okay, I'll eat less. And then your BMR gets even lower over time with age. So especially the perimenopausal, menopausal demographic, it's just fucking hard, because by that time, if you haven't cultivated lean body mass, and on top of that, you've got some hormone shit going on in your thyroid, progesterone, then you feel like trash, and it's just really hard to reverse that. But that's what we do that's like primarily what we do for people, is get them a system to create that, along with literally everything you just said about the beliefs. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're out here helping people do. You want to get in the Q&A?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We'll just pick them at random here. I probably should have looked at some of these beforehand. Some of these I answered on Instagram already. Here's a good one. I'm sorry. This is a silly noob question. It's not really. You'd be surprised. How do I know I'm in a caloric deficit? How do I know I'm burning more than I'm consuming? I know what I'm consuming because I track in MyFitnessPal, but not what I'm burning. So I think when I say the output has to be larger than the input, people immediately think, well, now I have to track how many calories I'm burning so I can eat less than that.
Stop doing that.
Yeah.
Calorie tracking apps are so ridiculously inaccurate. Like up to 40 to 60% off of what they report.
You're talking about the burning part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
Because you said calorie tracking. I don't want to confuse anybody.
Yeah, Apple Watch is like calorie tracking on the output side. I mean, like how many calories burned, still
burned.
a calorie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I think the fundamental truth is if you are losing weight over time, you are in a calorie deficit. I mean, it's really quite simple. Could be weight, could be waist measurements, could be, other metrics. But this is also why weighing yourself on a day-to-day basis and judging whether you did a good or bad job or that you're doing it right on an acute period of time doesn't allow you to get enough data points to draw a conclusion from. But if you're losing weight, you're in a calorie deficit. If you're not losing weight and you're maintaining weight, then you're at maintenance. And if you're gaining weight, you're in a surplus. That's how you would know.
Yeah, I agree. If you're losing weight, you're in a calorie deficit. If you're not losing weight, and I don't mean we don't mean losing weight constantly every week. You're going to have days where your weight, Earth's gravitational pull on you, goes up. You're literally putting things in your body and they're excreted every day. Your weight is going to fluctuate. Those of you who are still in your menses, you're going to fluctuate with that hormonal fluctuation. It just is. That doesn't mean that you're still not progressing in the right direction. But if you are trending as an averaging weight loss over time, you're in a caloric deficit. If you're not, you're not in a caloric deficit. So it doesn't mean you need to eat less necessarily. It might mean you need to move more. Look at step count, look at your protein intake, because as you always say, calories in impacts calories out with the thermic effect of food. Look at that. Look at your strength training. Look at your exercise in general. And there's probably a lot of room for opportunity there. Because like I said, if that output column's tiny, then you're going to have to eat a minuscule amount. And what that does is not only makes it very hard for you to eat little enough to lose weight, it makes it very easy for you to be in a huge fucking surplus if you do have a really off day with eating. So like if your expenditure column's tiny and you go out with the girls and you eat 3,500 calories, for you, that's a big ass surplus. And that can impact you more so than someone who is expending a lot more calories than you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just a surplus, it's a big ass surplus. It's easy for you to be in a surplus when people say shit doesn't work the same. Well, when you had years of not checking those boxes in the expenditure column, yes, what used to be a calorie deficit for you is now a surplus because your basal metabolic rate is lower. You're not burning as many calories, just functioning. You want to pick one?
I know it's Halloween tomorrow, so is it okay to give myself a break and enjoy all the all-time sweetness? I know I can't always restrict myself, and I gotta enjoy life a little bit.
The label you're putting on the candy's worse than the candy.
Well, here's yeah. One thing I will say, no, you can't always restrict yourself. I think one thing that's important for people to understand is that you see life through a story. And it's really important to pay attention to the stories that you tell yourself. And language will tell me a lot about somebody. So like, you're asking me a question to justify the behavior that you already know you're going to engage with so that you feel good about doing it. There's nothing wrong with enjoying candy, a few pieces of candy. There's a huge difference between enjoying a few pieces of candy and like giving yourself an excuse to go full send and eat like an asshole on a certain day. Only you know what your intentions are behind that. And so I am all about flexibility, but I'm also very adamant about the gravity and the frequency in which you do shit, because that's what reinforces certain behaviors that are either adaptive or maladaptive. So I just think it's important because I don't want people to take that and go, YOLO, Christmas, holidays, and then be like, oh, I listened to this fitness professionals podcast and they told us I could do whatever I wanted because one day doesn't make a difference. The problem that people don't see is that one day tends to domino. Nobody just has Thanksgiving. People have leftovers for like a week, and then Christmas, and then New Year's. And it's like, maybe those days in particular, if you're 200 to 300 to 400 calories over on those days individually, is that going to make a huge negative impact? No. Unfortunately, people are over 400, 500, 600, 400 for like a week. And then they get really lackadaisical about the other behaviors that allowed them to maintain or get to where they actually are. So that would be my added bullet point to check yourself with as far as intentions behind behaviors driving outcomes that either lead you to satisfaction or disappointment.
Boom. I agree. Let's see here. There's a hormone question. We talked about insulin resistance. We've touched on that quite a bit. You know a lot about lipedema?
Do I know a lot about it?
Yeah. I mean, I know what it is, and I know it's the only thing that can really prevent someone from getting weight loss results, even whilst in a caloric deficit, because a lot of times you can't get rid of it outside of surgical procedure.
Correct. That's
really the extent of my knowledge. We've had clients with lipedema, and the progress was snail's pace, and they were doing really well. It's just one of those things. Like it often takes surgical, and sometimes it comes back after the surgery.
Yeah, if it's not within my scope of practice, I will always refer out to a physician, and then typically I'll work with client and physician to come up with a treatment plan for them that's safe. So am I well versed in it? No. Am I familiar with it? Yes, but I always allow the physician to lead.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a client that wasn't aware, and then like midway through was like, "Oh, I have this," and we were like, "Oh, that would explain," And then that's exactly what we did. We're like, "What's the doctor think?"
Do you believe testosterone, when needed, will help the body composition as long as lifestyle factors are accounted for?
Yes,
Why?
it has a large influence on your ability to build and maintain lean body mass. After a year of having optimal levels of testosterone, it impacts your insulin resistance in a very positive way. It helps with body fat reduction. It helps with well-being. It helps with it's a counter for symptoms of depression. People with lower testosterone levels, male or female, have higher rates of depression and anxiety than those with optimal testosterone levels. Not to mention the libido, so you have quality of life in relationship there. But yes, it's a vital hormone for both women and men.
Will taking HRT testosterone make me lose hair?
No, testosterone in itself does not make people lose hair. It's the DHT conversion and the androgen sensitivity if there's PCOS present. It's complex, but the top two reasons why, if you introduce testosterone and you experience hair loss, it's not the testosterone, it's the conversion to DHT. There are treatments for that, but there also could be potentially androgen sensitivity, which contributes to the hirsutism that you see with polycystic ovarian syndrome with women who have PCOS. If that's impacting the liver via insulin resistance, because that's usually what the culprit is with PCOS. It's not actually PCOS causing the majority of the symptoms, insulin resistance. If that impacts the liver's ability to produce SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin, and that's no longer binding to the free testosterone, then you could have excess free testosterone in the bloodstream. You could also have excess DHEAS in the bloodstream. So there's a lot of things that could be going on there, but those are the usual causes. It's not the testosterone's an innocent bystander. It's usually the DHT or the DHEA or the free testosterone and the androgen sensitivity as a result, combined with potentially progesterone deficiency, opposing excess estrogen. So there's a lot there. It's multifaceted, but it's not the testosterone 9 out of 10 times. People don't lose hair due to testosterone use, DHT.
I think an important lesson we can take from that lecture is that nothing is cause and effect, right? Everything is multivariate. This is why even in research analysis, we say correlation, not causation. So 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2. There's usually other variables that are impacting the outcome environmentally, genetically, biologically, with some of the things that you're experiencing. And the danger will always be in the dose.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
I got a lot of hormone questions. That's why I'm throwing them.
Go for it.
My estrogen is gone. Post-menopause. Mid-60s. I lift weights and walk. Calorie deficit. What can I expect?
Well, if you're in a calorie deficit, you can expect weight loss. If you're doing all those things, you're lifting weights, you're walking. I mean, we have women who are 60 plus in our program who have been in our program who have totally transformed without hormone replacement. Let me be very clear. I was very clear about that in my menopause weight loss webinar. But that being said, if we talk about longevity, bone density, prevention of all-cause mortality, you need to replace those hormones if you don't have them. Women with optimal hormones live longer, healthier, happier lives than women who don't, generally. That's what the data shows us, the statistics around HRT. Bioidentical, to be clear, not synthetic. That's the difference maker. But yes, women, estradiol has a profound impact on bone density, and we see a lot of osteoporotic fractures in women 60 plus because of bone density loss. Obviously, the weight training will help, but if you lose those hormones, you are at a greater likelihood of sustaining those osteoporotic fractures due to the bone density loss from the estradiol deficiency.
Does having 0 progesterone and plenty of estrogen really matter with losing weight?
With losing weight, no. With quality of life, yes.
That was my response on my story.
Yes, you put it very well. I agree. It's quality of life, which therefore impacts the likelihood you will check the boxes that lead to weight loss. If you feel like trash, you're not going to go on a walk. If you feel like trash, you're less likely to work out. If you feel like trash, you're less likely to think about food and just soothe with food instead. There's so many things that psychologically, physiologically that play a part here. But that being said, that is what estrogen dominance actually is. It's not excess estrogen. It's deficient progesterone in proportion to your estrogen. and now there's no longer any progesterone opposing that excess estrogen. That's where those effects of, quote unquote estrogen dominance can come from, and sometimes it's even insulin resistance in disguise. Estrogen dominance is mostly a misnomer, but just wanted to clarify that. That's what the risk you have there. It's not necessarily you're not going to lose weight because of it. It's quality of life, big time. Yeah. Got a fasting question. Does walking in? Here's an interesting one. Does walking in place count as steps? And what I like to do when I get a question like this is think why they're asking it and what their understanding is of like why any step wouldn't count. But then my first thought, because I'm just be transparent, I think of someone just trapped in a phone booth and that's why they have to walk in place.
I think maybe they mean like walking around your kitchen or like walking, like not walking outside.
Like walking in place.
Like marching.
Yes.
I don't know why it wouldn't count, but I would be concerned as to why you're doing that. Unless it's like, here's the thing that I noticed. So like, I'm going to go ahead and just call out my own assumptions and possible projections here. If you follow bodybuilders, you will see people doing really ridiculous things that are very similar to people who have disordered eating habits doing for a very specific goal, which is getting fucking shredded. I remember when I was in that industry specifically, people would walk in their house or in place to get their step count because they were obsessed with their fitness trackers telling them they hit their step goal that day. This is why I think sometimes these things can be taken to an extreme. I would prefer you walk somewhere that you enjoy, that gets you outside, fresh air, and like all the benefits of that. But if you only have your house and you're confined to that space, there's also nothing wrong with walking around your house. I just want to also shine light on the fact that if you're doing it because you're obsessed with your step tracker and it's causing you anxiety, stop.
The people want to know, do those steps count?
Yeah.
Yes. Because I get questions. The reason I'm focusing on this is I get questions like, do steps on a treadmill count? Do steps, and I'm like, all steps count. I don't know why they wouldn't.
A step
count.
is a step is a step is a step. Like a duck is a duck.
Mm-hmm. Quacks like a duck, walks like a duck.
It's a duck.
It's a duck, man. It's a step. Yes, steps. Just don't. It's just an example of overthinking the fuck out of this stuff. If you are, we already answered that. Never mind. That was on exercise calories. Thoughts on women going on test who are on low levels? Yes. Any hormone you have low levels of, you should replace. Or if you're symptomatic as well. This is an interesting one. What do you look for when you hire a new coach for your team?
Willingness, giving a fuck about people. We have core values within the company, then we also have core values within each division. So connection, compassion, and consistency are really, really important for coaches to give to their clientele when they work with them and they serve them. At the end of the day, people are coming to you. They're not buying a workout plan. They're not buying a meal plan. They're buying support. They're buying accountability. They're buying guidance. And they need you to have their back. And so if you aren't willing to be available, if you aren't willing to communicate, if you aren't willing to show up for them, if you aren't willing to go the extra mile to make that person feel seen, heard, understood, acknowledged, important, and also have the desire to continue to grow your skill set, your understanding, your knowledge base, and culture matters. I will not bring somebody in that would negatively impact the culture. I don't enjoy that. You have to be open-minded. You have to bring, you don't have to, but I really appreciate people who bring ideas, who are willing to work as a team. It's not me, it's we. And that really believe in the mission and are willing to contribute to the betterment of the lives that we impact and the mission that we're on. If you have that, along with basic nutritional knowledge and understanding of strength training and all of those different things, like you should be fundamentally sound as a coach with your skill set, with a desire to serve and learn more and continue to grow in that. And then just align with the values that we have as a culture, I think is very, very important.
Integrity. I mean, I would absolutely echo every bit of that and say integrity as well. You know, just there's no room, especially in this day and age, especially with, you know, there being good programs out there, and the people can take their pick of programs. You want good people. You want honest people. You want people who value truth. You want people who are transparent. You want people who are eager to grow. You want people who are thirsting to become better at their skill set. So everything you said and more, I couldn't agree more with. That's what you want in an agent of change, people with compassion.
And I want people I can learn from. That's what I mean. I love it when people bring ideas. People who are curious and creative and, you know, not afraid to be in a leadership role. Like I know we're combining stuff, but like our core values were leadership, integrity, fortitude, and excellence. And so everybody agrees to those and they live by them and they embody them. And then obviously coaching has a different one, like a different series of them, but they all collectively fall under life. And so like I expect those things from my team because that's what we agreed to together collectively. And they hold me to that same standard. Just because I own the business doesn't mean that I'm a special fairy here. And I really love my team. I couldn't be more grateful for them. As I started this whole conversation with, we just have really, really good people. And I'm really, really grateful for them.
Yeah. There's honestly, okay. I want, tell me if you agree with this. This is how I feel about when a client has an utter transformation. Like, I mean, Ashley Darbaris, this client we have that's down 95 pounds. I told her on our group call this week, she looks like a completely different human. She's sitting there, she's smiling, her face, she just looks, and I was so proud of her. It made me emotional. But it's simultaneous. So I'm proud as shit of her. I'm proud as shit of her coach. Because, I mean, like, her coach, Denise, like, she made that happen. She helped her do that. And so, like, I'm proud of two people at once. I'm proud of the client for doing what it took to get that result. I'm proud of the coach for coaching her through that and being an agent of change. Like, that's really a really cool feeling for me.
Yeah, it's the fact that you trust these people to embody everything that you've taught them and then to watch them make it their own and just like build killer relationships with a killer impact. Again, our business tends to focus more on like the behavioral mindset side of things. It's like when I have calls with clients and I hear about the impact that it's had on their confidence, how they show up to work, how they got a job promotion, how their marriage is better, like their intimacy levels, their all of the different things as far as like human fulfillment and flourishing domains that carry over into how they show up for themselves and train and like reward themselves in a positive direction for body transformation is phenomenal. It makes me very emotional oftentimes. And I can't say enough for just what a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful team I have.
Yeah. So we always share wins at the beginning of those calls. 99% of the wins are not about weight loss. 99% of the wins, someone left a job that was they hated and are stepping into this new uncomfortable, uncharted territory of a new job. Someone left a relationship that was abusive or you know, that was crossing their boundaries constantly. They had the courage to do it, the confidence to set a boundary, what have you. People are having difficult conversations with their husbands that previously they wouldn't have leaned into. Like 90% of the wins are not about body transformation. Everything's just a byproduct. It's like almost as if body transformation is just bonus at the end of the day for this, on top of this reality they've cultivated, which is really fucking awesome to see. People don't see those in the before afters. They see the physical change, but they don't see what happened between the ears and the new quality of life.
Well, and that's the thing about food. Food is a really easy vice. I've always said it's usually not about the food. People think it's about the food. It's like the symptom versus the root. The food, eating, it's a symptom of something. And when you get to the root of it, you can help them start to build from the ground up. And then it just, as a side effect, the thing that caused them a lot of pain and friction previously is no longer the cope that they need to use, oftentimes, with the people that we work with. So that allows for a lot of the transformation that they've been fighting themselves trying to achieve when it was just scary to look underneath the hood and see what was actually going on.
1000%. Y'all, I hope you enjoyed this. We certainly did. Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for hanging out with us for Halloween. Hope everyone has this will air probably. I don't know when this will go on YouTube. It'll go on Spotify in probably about a week. But we did this on Halloween, just so you all know.
Yeah, now we're going to get freaky.
No.
Because it's Halloween.
Better not hear Lisa. Never know Lisa hear that. All right, y'all. Appreciate you listening.
Mom, I meant the PG. PG statements.
Appreciate you guys.
Trick or treat.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Okay, bye.
We'll see you later. We'll see you.
We'll see you. Bye.